If I can't keep my head held high enough, I'll just speak love and watch the smiles come, bring my spirits up. There's some shit I like to fix, but I still know that I'm blessed.
Welcome back to my coverage of the Kristin Smart trial. We're heading into day number 11, August 10th, 2022, Wednesday. Mike Kennedy, campus police, was back on the stand today. He was continuing his testimony from Monday, and remember, court was out Tuesday again because of a juror who was absent. And before testimony even began, another alternate juror was sworn in, and this time it was on Paul's jury. This is just incredible. I'm really blown away about these jury, what's going on with this jury. At times like these, I really wish we had access to this trial because today they played the audio interview between Mike and Paul, which was recorded on May 28th, 1996. Paul said he was originally going to his sister Irma Linda's off-campus home, and that's going to come up in the trial multiple times. He decided to go to the Crowned Away party when he saw it. He'd been to a party there at that house months before, so when he saw the party passing by, he decided he would just go inside. Paul said he drank at the dorm before he even left and was feeling the effects of that alcohol. And he doesn't even remember how he ended up walking Kristin, but he said she was walking just fine, and he hugged her 2 times, and he doesn't remember what they talked about while they were walking, if anything. Paul said he did not put his arm around her or help her walk. They talked about Paul's black eye and his scraped knee. Paul claims his buddy, Javier, sorry about the pronunciation, saw him without his black eye and said he got it Sunday playing basketball. Paul said he was being truthful throughout. During the testimony regarding the dorm layout, the following photos were shown with the dorm windows, showing how the students would move out for convenience out the window instead of going down the halls and back out and around. And I do wonder why Paul's roommate Derek, if you remember his testimony, he said that the window swung out and he did not believe that a person could fit through the open window. So I envisioned it, those old-fashioned ones that kind of swung out, because that's how he described it. So when we went to the scene, I just figured the windows were upgraded, since that was 26 years ago. So I'm not sure what to make of it yet. I haven't found official pictures from 1996 of the dorms and the windows. If anyone has them, it'd be great if you'd send them to me. My email is in my channel description. I'm sure with more testimony and more clarity as we go through this case, we'll probably hopefully get to see some photos and exhibits now that we have the victory of the Media Coalition motion. That's really open access tremendously. It's pretty exciting, all the extra things I'm getting to access and able to see. All right, continuing on with day 10, August 10th, 2022. This is cross-examination, some of the cross-examination by Robert Sanger. He wanted to discuss a phone call from Margarita at 3 a.m. that she received May 29th that she thought may have been Kristin. And I just love this picture of Margarita in the dorm room, which they refer to as the bricks. And for me, it just sets the scene. It's her actually in that time and place, her clothing and the way the room was set up and the desks. I don't know, it goes a long way for me. So moving on. Sanger could not locate his copy of Kennedy's notes regarding the phone call, so he asked Mike to return after lunch. Then Sanger attempted to publish an aerial map of the dorms, but once again, he couldn't find the exhibits. So the prosecution loaned their copy to him. Wasn't that nice of them? Remember how we've gone over the courtroom is like a stage and every move matters? What do you guys think the jury's thinking about all the disorganization, the conflicting statements, all the missed days, and so on? It just seems like it's a cluster F, if you know what I mean. Sanger asked about crime scene preservation, and Mike said when Paul moved out, the door locks were changed and crime scene tape was placed on the door. Sanger asked how many officers entered Paul's room from May 28, 96 through June 4th, 96. And the answer was only himself and Sheriff Deputy Newfield. There was an objection on relevance when Singer asked if the Smart family used psychics. It was sustained. Here is an actual drawing related to the case where a psychic from Thousand Oaks, California, Kathy Lynn, says she believes this is where Kristin's body can be recovered. Kennedy denied authorizing a flyer with Paul's photo and personal information on it. As Kennedy ended his interview with Paul, he asked for a TV guide. Side note, I'm sure a lot of you don't even know what a TV guide is. I'll put a picture in here for you. Moving on. Somehow, the TV guide would be used to establish what time Paul left his room. And I'm not really sure exactly how that plays in, but that was part of testimony today. Mike also asked Paul to find his alibi from the dorm community bathroom when he said he ran into someone supposedly at 5 a.m. in the bathroom. And surprise, 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 Paul never provided either one of those. Jurors were shown this sheet of paper with Kristin's handwritten notes on the side on how to rent a home or apartment. Kristin's ID card was also shown. There was another short sidebar leading to a 15-minute break after the prosecution asked to play audio recording and provide jurors with transcripts. Singer had issue with it. I was just thinking when I pointed out how many probably don't know what a TV guide is, just think about Paul's jury, as it said that they're a lot younger. It's just interesting. And check this out. Kennedy had to actually explain to the jurors what a checkbook was because a lot of younger people don't use the checkbooks. Kristin's wallet contents were also displayed on the screen along with items collected from her dorm room. As you see here, Kristin had less than $95 in her checking account. Singer also spoke to Kennedy about the May 31st, 1996 meeting where the district attorney investigator came on board and took over the investigation of Paul, while Cal Poly continued to investigate Kristin's missing persons case. Next, we have the cross-examination of Ruben's attorney, Mr. Misek. And in his cross-examination, he was questioning Mike Kennedy about calls that came in regarding possible sightings of Kristin the months following her disappearance. Some of the reported locations were Cayucas, not far from here actually. She was reported to be at several Taco Bells around California. I'm wondering if that was her favorite food or what. That's a trip. And it was odd locations. Some examples were Modesto, Clovis, Coalinga. Mike said the reported sightings were not credible. There was no pattern to the sightings reported. And there was approximately 75 to 80 reports. And they range all the way from Disneyland to Northern California. Kennedy was excused from the stand at 3:14 p.m. And next to appear is Lieutenant Robert Cudworth. After lunch, Robert Cudworth took the stand. He was a Cal Poly police officer who interviewed Paul the summer of 1996. He reported to Muir Hall room number 120 on May 28, 1996. Kristin's roommate, Crystal, who already testified, led him into the room, and they discovered all of Kristin's belongings were left behind. He went on to take a report, interviewed Cheryl, interviewed Tim and Jen and 2 other students. Then, later that afternoon, he interviewed Paul while he was at work at the campus grocery store. Paul said he saw Kristin at the party, he didn't talk to her, he wasn't attracted to her, and that he, quote, did not want to get together with her, end quote. On May 30th, 1996, Cudworth and Kennedy met with Paul again at the Cal Poly police station, where they noticed the black eye and the scrapes. We did have another jury question today about Paul's demeanor during his first conversation with Robert Cudworth, and the answer was he was cooperative, and there were no red flags at that time. Cudworth was excused from his testimony at 4:14 p.m. Next to testify will be Rick Neufeld. The final witness of the day, Wednesday, was Richard Neufeld with San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Department. He was part of the coroner's unit and the crime lab back in 1996. He was questioned regarding his forensic search of Paul's dorm room on June 24th, 1996. He said he went to room 128 in Santa Lucia Hall, which is Paul's dorm room. He was there looking for hairs, fibers, fingerprints, or other evidence. Paul's room had already been cleaned because the move out had happened. The semester was over. The year was over, actually. It was the end of the year. So the room had been cleaned already, and there was no usable prints, but he did collect fibers and hairs from the mattress. He went back to Paul's dorm room on June 29th to collect Paul's mattress cover, and prosecution asked why the 29th, and Sanger objected on hearsay, which was sustained. So I'm curious about what that is. That'll come out later, I'm sure. The mattress cover was packaged on June 29th, 1996 as evidence. And they did say Neufeld would return Friday with more of his testimony. And it will be only Paul's jury on Thursday, August 11th. All right, let's cover what happened in court today, Thursday, August 11th, 2022.
DA investigator Bill Hanley testified today. The evidence shown to Flores' jury was a taped interview just 3 weeks after Smart's disappearance. Hanley, who was senior investigator at the time.
William Hanley has a 33-year history with the district attorney's office.
So at 11:08 a.m., there was an announcement that DA Hanley was actually sitting in the hallway at the courthouse. So everybody was excited and assuming the jury was going to be able to hear the interview that Hanley did with Paul back on June 19th, 1996. And they were correct. And dang, I wish I could have been there. I wish I could see it. I wanted to hear like the inflection in Paul's voice and see his body language and those kind of things. I've only seen very few examples of that. It would have been really cool to have access to that. Best I can tell, they had a late start today. Some mornings they start at 8:30 a.m. and some mornings 10:30 a.m. And if Hanley was still out in the hallway at 11:08 and he was the first one on the stand, it deduces me to believe that it was a late start. So anyway, back to Hanley and what he discussed in court today. He reviewed the interview with Paul, and Paul said in the interview that he rubbed Kristin's arms a few times because she was cold. He volunteered it wasn't sexual at all. Paul casually said he saw a gal from class standing with Kristin at the end of the party and decided to walk with them. You'll notice that not one other single person ever has said that Kristin was standing. It's been confirmed she was passed out on the lawn. Cheryl must have been the classmate that Paul was referring to that he said that he saw. Paul never mentioned that Tim was along for the walk, and he also never mentioned that Kristin was having any difficulty walking. Paul also told him he went to dinner with his friend Javier and then they went to the movies. And as we know, he was going to hang out at his sister's house, saw the party instead, and went there. He went on about how he threw up and went back to bed and then got up again and took a shower. Of course, where he said that he was spotted by someone who never materialized. The next thing I was really shocked to hear today. I knew there was going to be some things that shocked me, and this is definitely one of them. When he was asked what he thought happened to Kristin, Paul said, quote, he believed she went off with somebody, and he believed she was dead. Hanley noted Paul was the only one who said they thought Kristin was dead. This was a shocker to me. I had never heard this before. What about you guys? Paul, once again, said he wasn't attracted to Kristin, saying, quote, I don't go out with those type of girls. She was flirting with too many guys, end quote. Hanley recalled asking Paul why he didn't make sure Kristin made it to her dorm safely. Sanger objected. It was overruled. Paul said he didn't even think about it. The interview was taped to clarify all Paul's inconsistencies. Apparently the first few minutes don't exist because someone at the police department did not hit the record button right away. Okay, moving on. Of course, they go into Paul's lies, and Paul said, quote, "Oh, it's not really lies," end quote. "It's a fib. So it's not, well, I guess you can call it a little white lie," end quote. Sorry, that was one large quote. Let me do it again. Paul said, "Oh, it's not really lies, a fib. So it's not, well, I guess you can call it a little white lie." What's the big deal with the white lie? He wanted to know. Hanley went on to testify about how Paul had agreed to do a polygraph test during the May 31st, 1996 interview. And then by the June 19th, 96 interview, Paul had already changed his mind. Sanger objected and said that it wasn't admissible, and the objection was sustained. And there were several more heated objections during the polygraph testimony. Sanger was objecting quite a bit. By the way, today, in addition to the slides shown on the screen in court, example with the map here, jurors also received transcripts to follow along with this recorded interview. So as the interview played, they followed along. Unfortunately, we don't have any access to the recorded interview yet. No public access, no media access yet, but hopefully we will get access to that. I found this interesting. At one point, it was mentioned that it was even suggested that Roxy, aka Kristin, possibly had punched Paul and given him the black eye. So that was interesting. That was actually stated to him by law enforcement. Since my access to what Hanley went over in the interview is limited, I did find some previous testimony for preliminary hearings that I imagine were stated in court today. So let's just go over some of that. Hanley stated that Paul remembered playing pool and the types of alcohol, but not much else. He said, quote, "I guess I had a blackout about that time," end quote. WTH. That is such a weird statement. What does that even mean? Anyway, moving on. Paul lied again about his black eye, which he's now saying was from putting a car stereo in his Ford Ranger. That was the lie he told that time. He said he lied before because it didn't sound likely. And remember the infamous drunk balcony incident? Well, Paul actually admitted he did climb up on the balcony of those Cal Poly girls, terrorizing them, and refused to leave until the police came. And when Hanley asked Paul if he was a different person when he drank, Paul said, quote, "Yeah, I guess." Okay, let's get back to the actual testimony in court today with Hanley. They discussed how Hanley and Hobson pushed the idea of the polygraph, and Paul said he had to go check with his parents. And the video actually ended with Paul saying, quote, "I can't say anything I don't remember," end quote. I'm sure you all have figured out already that I'm a total empath. And when I hear things like what you're going to hear in the next clip, it just breaks my heart. It's painful. That's part of why I do this. I just feel like Kristin deserves a lot more coverage, and I'm going to do what I can.
The recorded interview played in the courtroom Thursday between investigators and Paul Flores seemed tough to watch for the Smart family. At one point, Stan Smart wrapped his arm around his wife, Denise, as they both listened to this exhibit.
During Sanger's cross-examination of Hanley, it was confirmed that Paul told him in the June 19th, 1996 interview that his parents told him to stop talking to the police. Side note, sounds just like Susan and Ruben, in my opinion. There was lots of objections today. For example, at one point, Sanger got aggressive, referring to Paul as a 19-year-old kid. And Purville, the prosecution objective, saying argumentative, which was sustained. And Sanger tried to argue, and the prosecution said, 19 is an adult. Sanger said, "Come on." And the judge ordered him to rephrase the question. So he then asked the judge if using the term young man was okay to say. So he got pretty sassy there. Sanger also pressed Hanley on his interview techniques, including giving false statements, as long as it wouldn't incite a false confession, is what Hanley said. Hanley agreed that some of the statements made to Paul were false. Hanley clarified that Jeremy Moon saw Paul on Sunday with the black eye and Monday when they played basketball. And I've noticed confusion in testimonies throughout and interviews regarding these dates, so that makes it perfectly clear. Hanley admitted Paul did not confess, and just before Hanley was excused, he agreed with Sanger that Paul was cooperative and polite during both of the interviews. And apparently one of the jurors nodded off at one point today, so wow, I guess that partially answers my questions about how the jury is seeing all this. Sanger reviews the May 31st, 96 report again, even though the prosecution already went over it earlier the same day. And I think that's probably where the juror nodded off, if I were to guess. Okay, I found this in my later research, and it did annoy me slightly, I'm not going to lie. Sanger proceeded to go down a list of what Paul was honest about. Okay, you ready? These are the things he told the truth about. Number 1, where his sister lived. Number 2, drinking beer at the dorm. Number 3, talking to Cheryl at the party. Whoop-de-doo! That's what I have to say about that. Side note, this is the second class subject that I've seen. It's English class now, and I remember before I heard it described as a different class, and I know it's not important, but I just don't like misinformation. It was a long day in court, and it was all reviewing that taped interview. So obviously I don't have access to all of it, but hopefully I found the most important stuff. And I'm 99.9% pretty certain that it was only Hanley that testified all day today. That's a really long day. And then for Sanger to just rehash everything the prosecution went over, no wonder the poor jurors dozed off. All right, it's time for more tidbits. And you know how I've discussed inaccuracies and misinformation and how it messes up research? Well, I know there's difference between partial and inaccuracy. For example, when they were talking about Paul's interview being at the police station some places and then it was in the car at other places, I found out that it actually started at the police station. It was too noisy, so it then moved to the car. So that's an example of how things can be construed at times. There's another piece of evidence that I'm a little confused about. So, what about the stain, quote-unquote stain, mentioned on Paul's mattress cover? And that came out in recently released documents due to the media coalition's motion. And all of a sudden, the media itself is deeming that quote-unquote stain as a blood stain. I know they have what they call HME cDNA, which is human mammary epithelial cells. And my understanding is it's linked to DNA from a female. So far, testimony from the actual forensic investigator who worked on this case back in 1996, he only mentioned hairs and fibers that he found on the mattress cover. He didn't say anything about any stain, blood stain or otherwise. So I'm wondering if maybe they're waiting for the forensic expert witness to explain it all with a full explanation and proper descriptors, etc. I'm not sure. We'll see, but I'm curious to know what any of you might make of that. All right, now I have to do a little venting, and some of you have to feel the same way I do about this. So you all know how perturbed I already am about this problematic jury as far as attendance and all this. A few of the times this has happened already, court was actually in session with everybody else ready, the judge, the attorneys, the jurors, the witnesses, the family, the staff, everybody's there ready to go. You know, some people drive from far away, and just to be told within the first 5 minutes when you get there that you're excused for the day due to a jury absence is so annoying. And I'm sure it's emotional for some of the people involved in the case as well. Sorry, there's literally zero video coverage for Thursday, but there's a little more photos coming out since the media release was a success. It is what it is, and it is all better than nothing, but I have to feel that it's just far, far less than what Kristin really deserves. I like how it was only Paul's jury in there today. It gave Ruben's jury a chance to take the day off. They can get some rest. And hopefully we don't continue to lose juror after juror after juror.
A COVID-19 outbreak was reported today among 3 participants this week in the Kristin Smart murder trial, but that did not stop testimony from resuming.
Here we go. Like there wasn't enough going on with this trial already. So whoever tested positive is referred to as directly involved in the case. Tests are made available for those who may have been exposed. They are further asked to self-monitor for symptoms and wear masks in the courthouse till further notice. Court resumes Friday morning. Sorry about the jet airplane in the background.
Court officials say 3 participants in the trial again have tested positive over the last week. At this time, though, there is no indication that transmission has occurred between anyone in the courtroom.
Flores' dad, Ruben, is accused of helping his son hide her body. The 2 cases are being heard together, but tried separately. Today, Ruben's jury was not present, but will return tomorrow.
As always, justice for Kristin.
If I can't keep my head held high enough, I'll just be love and watch the smiles come.
Thanks for watching.
Bring my spirits up.
Don't forget to stop and smell the flowers.
There's some shit I like to fix, but I still know that I'm blessed.